Sitting back in front of my bookshelves, things are gradually getting back to normal, or so I'm trying to convince myself. We'll see if that's actually a reality. Okay, so hello, how are you? We are here to do the July 2025 wrap up. Now, it's so interesting because I definitely, and I think I'm going to clip this to my shirt because I'm going to get tired of holding this. I was definitely contemplating not doing this wrap up, right? I was like, it's not going to go up until like almost the middle of August because I haven't been feeling well. Life's been lifing, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to get it up because my wrap ups end up being so long anyway that if I was to combine July and August, I know future me would be so angry. So I opted not to. So this is coming to you a little late, but better late than never, right? I mean, you can do a wrap up whenever you want to do wrap ups. I just like to get them out of the way at the beginning of the month, but you wrap up books when you get the chance to wrap up books. So let's do a little bit of our statistics. I'm going to turn my head this way because I have it pulled up on my laptop in front of me. Now, I'm going to go ahead and preface this because I know, like, in the video that would have come out before this, I said that I was in a reading slump. I was in a reading slump the month of July. The numbers that you're going to hear are not going to sound like it. However, a huge chunk of my reading for July was picture books. That's why the number is going to seem skewed. I was in a reading slump. Trust me. It's just number-wise, statistics-wise, it's not going to sound like I was, but I was. I definitely was. This was also the month where I read a couple of books that were over 500 pages. I don't know. July was a very just interesting month for me as a reader, and yeah, it was just interesting. So, in the month of July, I ended up reading 50 books. Pages read was 7,210, which I think is the lowest that I've had so far this year. So if that's any indication, right, I usually put anywhere in between 8 to 10,000 pages. So 7,210 is relatively low for me, and that is because I primarily read picture books, which are like 30, 40 pages a piece. Hours listened to on audiobooks, 96.2. My average rating was a 3.8, and I did not have any DNFs this month, which, you know, I've actually been DNFing this year, which is very proud of myself. In terms of genres this month, I actually outread contemporary. Contemporary, it's only 13 books that can be accounted for as contemporary, and I read 16 fantasy books, which is 32.0%. That is a huge difference. I also read a lot of nonfiction this month, with 14 titles making up 28%. Some other genres, we had some historical fiction, some mystery, some horror, but primarily nonfiction, contemporary, and fantasy. I look at me doing the thing, okay? Like I said, in terms of formatting, 58.3% of the books I read in July were picture books. It was 28 books, 15 were novels, which is 31.3%, and 5 were graphic novels, which was 10.4%. It appears that I was almost half and half with author and publication. Basically, about 22 of the authors I've read before, 26 were new to me, and 2 were debut authors. So, you know, makes sense there. Everything I read this month was traditionally published, which, gotta do better about that. All right, let's talk a little bit about like the format, the source read. I primarily read physically this month because of the picture books. So 68% of my reading was physical. I did a couple of blended reads. 2 blended reads for 4%, 10 audiobooks, which is 20%, and 4 ebooks for 8%, which, yeah, so we're still in that range of me primarily reading physically. 90% of the books that I got, or that I read this month, came from the library. I mean, that just doesn't appear to be changing anytime soon. 3 of the books I owned, technically it's 4 because one of them came from a book box. So 4 of them came from my shelf, which is actually, that's inaccurate, y'all. I'm looking at the books in front of me right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I actually should have 5 total that I read, and I'm not sure why that's very interesting that ended up happening. Hold on, I have to fix this. Okay, I found it. I accidentally marked The Weight of Blood as library, but I own a copy of that book because it's sitting in front of me. Okay, so now that actually changes where 88% of the books I read came from the library. 1 was from Libro FM. 4 of them were owned, technically 5, but I've marked 1 as coming from a book box, which I think is a good part that Allie added to this spreadsheet. Not something I've had to think about before, but still good information to have. Let's see, in terms of what I read, age category, I read not 1 adult book last month. I read no adult books last month. I read 8 young adult books. I read 9 middle grade books, and I read 33 that could be classified as children. That's so wild. Let's see, in terms of, and this will be the last stat that I do, in terms of diversity, I read 24 diverse titles, which was almost 50%. So if I would have read 1 more book, it would have been 50, but it was 48%. So almost 50-50. You know, my preference is for my reading every single month to at least be 50-50. So there's that. All right, now that we are done with the stats, let's dive into all the books that I read. If you are new here and you've never seen one of my wrap-ups before, I divide my wrap-ups into categories where I do picture books, I do children's, which I consider primarily to be early chapter books, then we do middle grade, and then young adult, and then if there are any comics, graphic novels, or manga that will not fit in the category for middle grade or young adult, so typically they would be targeted towards an adult audience, I put those in their own category as well. We're going to go ahead and start with the picture books, and I do not really go over each picture book or give a rating or anything like that. All of my picture books are typically 3, 4, 5 stars, although this year there's been some exceptions where I've had a handful that were not good, unfortunately, but all of these received either 3, 4, or 5 stars. So let's go ahead and jump in. You Are a Wildlife Warrior, Scamp, Dinosaur Day, Hello Sun, which is technically a beginner reader, Cool Buzz to the Rescue, this is also technically a beginner reader, Maya Angelou Finds Her Voice, When You Meet a Dragon, Dear Black Boy, Home is a Wish, Some of Us, Over in the Mangroves, Be the Light, Who Meows, A Gift of Dust, One Day in June, I'm going to say this wrong, so bear with me, Kaha'olawe, The True Story of an Island and Her People, We Carry the Sun, Caboose, Love of the Half-Eaten Peep, Calm Your Roar Like a Dinosaur, The Hare Who Wouldn't Share, Hiding in Plain Sight, How Sweet the Sound, Look, Bruce Saves the Planet, Why We Eat Fried Peanuts, Waiting for Hanami, The Keeper of Stories, Oshu and Me, and last but not least, Roar for Reading. So all of those have been updated in Goodreads if you're interested in hearing more of my specific thoughts or just seeing what I rated each one of those titles. All right, now let's dive into the chapter books. So for the month of July, in terms of chapter books, we ended up reading 3 Heidi Heckelbeck books. Typically what I'm finding now in my chapter book section of my wrap-ups, it's usually what me and my kiddo have been reading together. I think she's a little burnt out on Heidi. We actually shifted to a different series. We're about to shift to another series. So you're going to be seeing more of a variety probably going into the month of August whenever I do my August wrap-up. But and for the month of July, we primarily stuck to Heidi Heckelbeck. Like I said, we read 3 titles, the first being Heidi Heckelbeck Gets Glasses, which I thought was absolutely hilarious. I gave it 4 stars. I think she really liked it. But this is the one in the series where Heidi essentially lies so that she can get glasses because she thinks glasses are cool, because Lucy comes in, who's one of her close friends, Lucy Lancaster. She gets glasses and everybody shows her so much attention, and so Heidi's like, well, I want attention too. Hilarious. Then we read Heidi Heckleback and the Secret Admirer, which I also rated 4 stars. This one was really good. It was like those really early feelings of like, I am fond of someone. This is not like necessarily first crush like I would see in like tween books, but I think it was like having a secret admirer, and it was handled very, very well. I thought it was really, really cute and charming and done in such an age appropriate way, especially because these books are more so targeted for kids that are in between, I would say anywhere between like, could be as early as 6 depending upon the reader, but I would say 7, 8, 9 years old. And the last one that we ended up reading, which was one of my least favorites that we've read so far this year, is Heidi Heckleback is Ready to Dance, where Heidi enters a talent show but kind of uses magic to her advantage. I don't know, I just felt like this one just thematically wasn't as strong as the rest, so I only ended up giving that one 3 stars. The next category that we're going to dive into is middle grade. Now, I know that it can be easy to say that all children's books are middle grade, but middle grade by publishing standards is typically for ages 8 through 12, which I know is a really, really broad range. Some now extending, going like 10 to 14. I don't even know what to do with that category because it's kind of middle grade, but it's kind of not. It's kind of YA, but it's kind of not. But for the sake of how I break my things up, middle grade is typically 8 through 12. We have a lot of titles in here that I have already talked about in some way, because a lot of these were covered in vlogs that I've done, so I'm not going to go into too much more detail. But what I will do is that in the description box below, you'll find all the vlogs that I did for the month of July if you want even more specific details. So the first one that we have up, of course, is The Darkest Hour. I talked a little bit about this one during my June wrap up, kind of, because what ended up happening was that I literally finished this on the 1st of July as I was finishing out the first arc of the Warriors, and y'all know I'm highly obsessed with the series. I have convinced a handful of people to begin reading the series, and it seems like people are enjoying it, and I love it because this is an older middle grade series that came out in the early 2000s, right? And so it's so amazing to see that for some of these books that are 20 plus years old, they're still holding up, they're still intriguing, they're still fun, and this was a heck of a conclusion to the first arc. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what happened after I finished this one, because I did start what is considered to be the super edition journey. But yeah, we'll talk a little bit about that later. But yeah, I definitely ended up giving this one 5 stars. After that, I did end up reading The Undead Fox of Deadwood Forest, which is another one that I had talked about a lot, and one that I easily have given, like, if I could give 1,000,000 stars to it, I think that I would. 5 stars, one of my favorite books of 2025. I think that this is a title that has Newbery potential, meaning that I'm hoping that in 2026 for the Youth Media Awards that takes place in January, we will see this book either win a Newbery Medal or win a Newbery Honor, which I don't know, but I have talked about this book, but just kind of a little bit of a synopsis. It follows a fox that is an usher of the dead, and so his responsibility is that when animals come into the forest after they've died, it's his responsibility to help them find what afterlife they're supposed to go into, what realm. And there's 4 specific realms that have very distinctive personalities or characteristics, and there is a badger that comes that is trying to figure out where she's supposed to go. Fox doesn't like badgers, and so he quickly gets rid of her, but finds out that she just keeps coming back. So part of the interesting magic of this is that if he sends someone to the wrong realm, they end up walking until they make their way back to where he lives, and he has to redo the process all over again. And so this badger keeps coming back, and she's closely linked to a prophecy that the fox has heard of, and so they're trying to figure out what exactly is supposed to happen next. This is a great lesson in grief, right? I feel like middle grade is in this phase of really capturing what grief is like, what those experiences are like, and this did such an excellent job. I was blown away by the narrator who breaks the fourth wall, and there's a reason why the narrator breaks the fourth wall. I was blown away by the just emotion in this book, and how as an adult I'm like, goodness gracious, like I wish I had a book like this that really explains what these things feel like. I always talk about the scene because I do think that the scene is probably one of the most beautiful scenes of this book, where the fox is having an emotional moment. He should be having an emotional moment, right? Because he finds out some news that I think typically would bring about certain emotions, and the badger is like, it's okay, you can cry. And he's like, I don't need your permission to cry. Like, what makes her think that she needs to give me the green light to feel any type of emotions? And he has this garden that he tends to, and something happens to the garden, and he breaks down. And I've never seen, I think in middle grade, this illustration of someone having an emotional break over something that doesn't necessarily warrant it, because they've allowed these emotions to build up, and the one specific event is what causes them to tip over, right? So it's not the destruction of his garden that, yeah, it's sad, but it's not what pushes, it's what pushed him over the edge. It's not that those feelings weren't already there from other things that he's had to deal with. So phenomenal book, phenomenal writing. I love this book so much. I need a physical copy of it. I love it. I want to reread it, and I want to annotate it. I love this book so freaking much. But definitely, yeah, 5-star read. The next thing that I ended up reading was a graphic novel, Don't Cause Trouble by R.E. Chung. Once again, it's another one I talked about in the vlog. We're following a main character who has his mom typically cut his hair, right, and does like the bowl cut, but going into middle school he kind of wants to be a little different, and his parents are not always accepting of that, and he is dealing with some interesting personalities at school. He's dealing with the impact of racism on his family. I thought it was very interesting how they show the dynamics between the mom and the dad, where the mom is really religious and the dad isn't, and his parents speak, I believe his parents are speaking in Chinese when they don't want him to overhear specific things, and he's basically told all the time, like, don't cause trouble, right? And there are some things that happen where he does end up causing trouble, trying to fit into an image that's really just not him, trying to fit in a world that is not always the most accepting. And there was this really specific moment between the main character and his dad where he really was like, it's hard, and I understand that it's hard. And it was a very special moment because his dad wasn't super like emotional at all. Hearing his dad kind of talk about his experience where he used to be so highly revered before immigrating to the United States, and he thinks that America is a great country, but then when he got to America he realized America did not think that he was so great, and that's a hard kind of pill to swallow. And you have these cultural clashes, especially with first gen kids who want to assimilate to American culture, but have parents at home that are immigrants that are kind of like, no, we have these standards and expectations that don't always align with what we typically see in America. I enjoy books like this because I am first gen, and so there are certain things that, like, my dad has in terms of his expectations that don't always align with what I've seen like other friends have had to experience that don't have parents as immigrants and are not first gen. So it just, it's, you know, it's interesting, but I ended up giving that one 4 stars. I then read Cincinnati Lee Cursebreaker. Now, this one was such a fascinating book, and one that I did not anticipate enjoying as much because I didn't really know much about it before picking it up. Heidi had written young adult, and I think that this is her first like jump into middle grade. So I was like, okay, well, I've read her before and we've seemed to gotten along pretty well. So like, I'll just try out her middle grade book without knowing much about it. It was really good. So we're following a main character, Cincinnati Lee, who is convinced that her family has been cursed. And she comes from a lineage of museum artifact individuals. And so we're following her journey and trying to connect with, I think it's either great or great grandfather. And there's a reason why that's even a thing, right? Because you would think like, how is that even possible? There are some magical elements to this that I did not expect, because I didn't read the synopsis before going into this book at all. But she's trying to connect with him, and they are trying, part of it has to do with like the ethics behind treasure hunting. So I always tell people, like, if you have young readers who are fans of things like National Treasure, The Da Vinci Code, The Mummy, like that, like this is that in a book, but done from a lens that questions the ethics of going to someone else's land, taking their artifacts and putting them into a museum for display. Like, okay, so my car got full. I'm not sure where I stopped, but I'm sure editing me will figure it out. But essentially, it does talk about the ethics of what it means to remove artifacts and preserve them, right? And so part of her adventure is restoring an artifact that has left her family cursed. And so she goes on this hunt, this journey with a couple of great friends who I love when authors are great at also developing these side characters, because we have 2 side characters that are pivotal to the story but have great personalities and are not just there to simply support the main character, right? I think that they have their own unique elements that they bring to the table that creates this even more full, fascinating story. Now, like I was saying before, there is this magical realism element that I was not anticipating going into this book, and it absolutely blew my mind a little bit, but I should have known, because it is a curse, that, you know, there was going to be some magic. But I think when we got to the end and there were certain reveals, I was actually shocked. I thought that this was really, really well done. I don't know if it's going to be a series. I think that it has potential to be a series, and I'm hoping that Heidi will consider it, or that she has gotten contracted to do a sequel, because I would read it and I think I would really, really enjoy it. So fingers crossed that that is a thing that does end up happening. After that, I ended up reading Miss Camper, which is a follow-up to Miss Keene Says, which came out, I can't remember if it was last year or the year before. I think it came out in 2023, if I'm not mistaken. Love that. Gave that book either 4 or 5 stars. Absolutely adored it. Miss Camper is the summer after what happened in the first book, and so it's kind of difficult for me to talk about specific elements because I don't want to spoil what happens in that first book. But we are following our main character as she goes to camp, and I don't know. I don't think the storytelling was as strong in this one, right? I love the artwork, as always. I feel like Kat does such a great job with the artwork, always. But I think I was looking for more of an emotional connection to the book that I didn't necessarily get. And the only reason why I was looking for that element is because I felt it so strongly in the first one. And in this one, unfortunately, it wasn't there. We focused a lot on the relationship dynamic between the 3 sisters and how certain things impact them and how they end up treating each other. We follow some things that happen at camp, but I don't know. I think I was I was expecting and wanting and hoping for more, and it didn't really happen for me. So I did end up giving that one 3 stars. I don't know if there's going to be a sequel, like another book, like if this is going to be a series or if we're going to be done just with 2 books. There's no telling. I think with graphic novels, it's the releasing or the news about how things get released is not as widespread as when we get news about releases with books. I don't know. That's just how I feel. Because sometimes I feel like I don't see a book getting, like a graphic novel, getting a like sequel or it being a series until like the year that it's going to be released. So that may be it, or we may get more. I have no idea. I also ended up finishing Firestar's Quest. This is the first super edition in the Warrior series. This is the first book or the first super edition that you should read after reading the first arc of Warriors, The Prophecy Begins. I can't really talk too much about this, to be honest with you, because this literally takes place after the end of the 5th book. So for me to say anything about any of this, it would spoil it. Literally, I feel like the name of this book is a spoiler if you haven't read the series. Yeah. It was good. Literally, because I feel like that's all I can say. Like, it was good. I gave it 4 stars. It wasn't quite a 5-star read. I do think that if you read The Prophecy Begins and you step into the super edition, do not expect the punches that you get in that specific series, right? The modern series with the modern clans. Don't expect that. The random wild cliffhangers. This, I think, is a little bit more character development, a little bit more world development, in the sense that we are discovering things that happened in the past that were unknown to both our main character Firestar as well as you as a reader. But it's good, and it lays the groundwork for, I believe, what's going to happen in the next arc, which is the New Prophecy. Now, I'm still not going to be picking up the New Prophecy anytime soon because I have so much content to read in between that. I know that Ray, I think, picked it up recently, but I still have Blue Star's Prophecy to read after this. Then I have some graphic novels that I need to read, and then I think I have some more super editions that I need to read before I jump into that. So you'll be seeing more of that this month. But yeah, I only did 2 Warriors books this month, but I feel like I'm going to do a lot more I only did 2 Warriors books in July, but I feel like I'm going to do a lot more in August. I'm speaking it up. I also read The Cookie Crumbles. I can't remember if I talked about this one in a vlog or not, or if I just talked about this in general. This is a middle grade mystery written by 2 authors, Tracy Badua and Alicia Dow, and it follows these 2 characters as, oh yes, I did. I talked about this on my Instagram. I was about to say, what vlog was this attached to? This was attached to Instagram controls my reading for a week, because now I remember what emojis I used for this. But so this one was not as good as I was anticipating, and I liked it because I like Tracy Badua and Alicia Dow as writers. But I think I just wanted a little bit more from this one. It's interesting in that there's a culinary aspect, a mystery element. We're following these 2 characters who've been friends since they were young. They want to go to the same school. One of our characters does get in. The other is competing in this cooking competition in order to get in. And there is an incident where one of the people who is helping judge the contest almost ends up dying from an allergic reaction, and so they're trying to figure out who exactly is responsible. I don't know, something about this just didn't give me the oomph that I wanted, right? I wanted to be super invested into this story, super invested into the mystery, but honestly, I wasn't. And it's not that I could care less, but I just wasn't drawn to it the way that I hoped I was drawn to it. And it could have been the pacing for me, because I feel like I'm still trying to figure out what exactly went wrong with it, right? Because the writing was fine, and the characters were fine, but I wasn't drawn to it. It just wasn't for me. And I think I also said in that vlog that it's not that I wouldn't read the sequel, but I'm not in a rush to read the sequel, which is not always a good sign for me. So I still have this as a 3.5, but I may drop my rating down to a 3 the more that I sit on it. I may just go ahead and put it at a 3-star, and I don't know if I will or if I won't pick up the sequel. The last thing that I ended up reading in our middle grade category was Sinister Sisters. This is the second graphic novel in the Are You Afraid of the Dark graphic novel series. I don't know if they're going to be more in this series. Once again, the graphic novel situation is always quite strange, and the first one in the series and the second one in the series came out very close together. The first one came out in October of last year, and this one came out in January, but I have heard nothing else. So I don't know if we're getting more. I talked about this one a lot because I read it for July Noir, so make sure you check out that vlog. I really enjoyed it. It's told in true Are You Afraid of the Dark fashion, where we're getting 3 stories in a story, because we're following kids that have this scary storytelling group. They meet in the woods, they share scary stories, and we're following a set of twins that have been having some conflict. Come to find out, one of them is a part of the group, or trying to be a part of the group, and the other is not. And so the group makes the bargain with them and says whoever tells the best stories is the one who gets to actually stay to be a part of the group. And so we get a story from each one of them, and then a combined story at the end, and it's really good. Roseanne A. Brown, I believe, grew up in Ghana, and so there's a lot of inspiration from Ghana within these stories, which I think is great. I love that they're doing these stories and they're bringing different people in to do the graphic novels that are bringing in like their culture and experiences, because it adds a different flair to Are You Afraid of the Dark that we haven't necessarily seen in the past before. All right, so let's move on. Oh no, hold up, y'all. I almost forgot a book. How did I do that? I almost forgot a book. No, we're not going to move on yet. Blood in the Water. I don't know how I almost forgot this. This is Tiffany D. Jackson's debut middle grade book. This was good. I gave this 4 stars. It's once again another one that I talked about in July Noirs. I'm not going to talk about it a lot here, but this was good. This is not easy to do. I think people don't realize that jumping between age categories is not simplistic. It's not easy. It takes talent to do that. And in this one, we are following a main character whose dad is incarcerated, and I love that Tiffany D. Jackson always weaves in social commentary, history that's related to the Black community. And we're following, like I said, a main character. Her father is incarcerated, and she's sent away for the summer to these family friends. And when she gets to Martha's Vineyard, which is where the family lives, the kids are not particularly nice, right? But our main character wants to be a lawyer. She's very, very observant, which is a key part to this story, because we have something go wrong with one of the kids, and it turns into a full-fledged mystery. So she's doing 2 things at one time. She's trying to prove that her dad is innocent, because he gets sent to jail for fraud. It's fraud, embezzlement type of thing, where he had money ending up in accounts that was not supposed to be there, and he gets blamed, and she's trying to prove his innocence. And then we have this case where we have a kid that ends up being found dead, and now we're trying to race against time to figure out who it is. This was just very, very well done, and I think that the fact that this is her middle grade debut is mind-boggling. So yes, 4 stars from me. And now we can start with our, I was about to say stop, which is why that probably sounded awkward. We can start with our young adult reads of July. So the first thing that I ended up reading was Death in a Jungle. I should not be surprised that he gave this 4 stars. It's Candace Fleming, who always does a really, really great job with nonfiction. I mean, just a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant job with nonfiction. And she brilliantly captured the impact of Jonestown and its impact on the United States and how we view, what do we call it? How we view cults, how we use the terminology of cults, lasting language that has come from Jonestown. Like, I always use the phrase, like, want to be all up in the Kool-Aid, don't even know what's in it, not realizing all this time that it was a reference to that. Like, I was like, dang, that was so insensitive, and I did not know that was where that phrase came from. But just how stuff like that from popular culture, the terminology being used, how it gets passed out, and not knowing the meaning, which I know better than that. But yeah, I thought it was just really, really well done. It's not necessarily information that is new. So if you're familiar with Jim Jones, Jonestown, and that tragedy, you're not gaining any new information. But this was written so that that specific event would be accessible for a teen audience. There were elements of it that I wasn't as familiar with because I know about Jonestown, but there were details that I did not know, and so there was some stuff that was new to me. But as an adult reading this, if you are very familiar with it, you may not gain a lot. But I think the way in which she took this information and wrote it in a way that is super, it would be super, and I don't want to say entertaining, but it would grab the attention of a teen who is interested in U.S. history, historical events, interested in cults, etc. Like, this is the book to recommend them. Ended up giving that one 4 out of 5 stars. All right, so the next one that I have is Under the Neon Lights. This is a debut that I feel like is not getting enough shine and not getting enough marketing. It is an ode, a love letter to roller skating rinks, and definitely like the relationships between Black communities and roller skating rinks. I grew up going to roller skating rink. I'm horrible at skating, but it is a hangout spot, right? Where a lot of kids and teens hang out, even adults, to go and skate and enjoy good music and, get some movement in. And in this specific story, we are following a main character whose roller skating rink, the one in her community, is about to get shut down, and there's nothing that anybody can do about it. So it's heart-wrenching, because in the same time that is happening, there are 2 other paralleling things, where one, we're watching the friendship that she had with a side character kind of crumble a little bit. It's changing because their interests are changing. And if you know me, I love a teen book that focuses on the changing of friendships and how devastating that can be. I think it's so easy to get wrapped up in the idea that romance is all that teens would connect to. But I remember going through some significant friendship changes in middle school and high school, and some of those friendships, the loss of those friendships being inevitably like devastating. It was hard. It was tough. It was not what anybody had told me about, that a friendship breakup can be just as painful as a romantic breakup. And so we see the shifting of a friendship that she has. They're doing completely different things while she also is falling in love for the first time. And then on top of that, we're seeing her town go through gentrification, where her apartment complex, essentially, or her unit in that area, they're going to raise the rent. They're telling them Section 8 is no longer available. And as someone who is seeing parts of her own community go through gentrification, it's silent but deadly, right? And I'm fascinated by any book that does that, especially teen books. But I think for a debut with so many different elements, I feel like Ariel did an exceptional job keeping all of these threads together. One of my biggest criticisms of books that have a lot of different plot threads is that somewhere along the way something gets dropped or something goes unnoticed. And in this, that wasn't the case. She did an excellent job with this book, and I wish that there was more there's more shine to it, but unfortunately there's not. But I did end up giving that one 4 stars. After that, I read Marissa Meyer's new graphic novel, We Could Be Magic. I ended up giving this one 3.5 stars, y'all. I was not blown away by it. I know people love it, and I think it's big for people who are fans of like Disney. I'm not, it's not that I'm not, but I'm just not fascinated by it, right? We do have a main character who is plus sized, who wants to be part of this Disney-like community as one of their actors, but unfortunately she doesn't, in their eyes, fit the standards in which she could be one of their actors, especially one of the like princesses or one of the magical beings outside of a furry animal where she would have to wear this hot behind costume, right? And so we were watching her navigate the difficulties of these unrealistic expectations in terms of conventional beauty standards and kind of trying to break the mold. And I like the artwork, but I wasn't blown away. It didn't do anything new for me, and that's the problem, where I think that the messaging is great, I respect it, I enjoy it, but do something new with it. It felt like we've read this story before, and I know we haven't, but I'm talking about like thematically it felt that way. So I only ended up giving that one 3.5 stars. After reading that, I did pick up The Weight of Blood, which I talked about in the July Noir vlog. This is Tiffany D. Jackson's take on Carrie, except we are dealing with a main character that is biracial, who is basically has been white passing for her entire life. Her dad has had her do that, and it comes out one day that she is in fact not white, and it sends everyone into a spiral. I think that this one is different from Carrie, from King's Carrie, in that there are a lot of racial elements to this one that I did not expect. I should have expected it because it is Tiffany, and I'm well aware of her writing, and I've read enough of her materials to know this. Semicolon, however, comma. Reading the racism from the perspective of a racist is hard. This book is heavy. I definitely recommend checking out content warnings. I enjoyed it. Some people said it didn't deviate enough away from Carrie, but I think that Tiffany did take this story and make it her own in certain ways that we don't see with the original book. So I did end up giving this one 4 stars. After I finished that, I read Blades of Fury, which is a young adult graphic novel. This was one that I had been reading off and on. My hold, I kept losing my hold, and it was a mess. Finally finished it and really enjoyed it. This is a relatively long graphic novel. It is literally about competitive figure skating, but competitive figure skating where they battle and the main characters are all animals. It's honestly great concept. Like, I really enjoy this. We are following these 2 main characters who battle. They end up catching feelings for each other. One of them is actually a vampire, and he's not supposed to be a vampire and competing. And their relationship is not supposed to happen because the people who are competing in this battle, competitive figure skating, are not supposed to have any type of fraternization. I think that their relationship is cute. I love the artwork. I love the character building. I love the plot. This was just a good graphic novel, and I'm glad that I caught it now because it's the first in a series. I'm not sure when volume 2 is coming out, but I caught it now, so I can keep up with it. But I ended up giving that 4 stars. I read another young adult nonfiction title, which was The Mysterious Virginia Hall, World War II's Most Dangerous Spy. I gave this one 3 stars. It was really short. It's only 100 something odd pages. It's just really a piece of World War II history that we're not often taught, especially when it comes to individuals. Virginia Hall, even as someone who's majored in history, loved history in high school, was not a name that I was aware of, and she was pretty badass, y'all. Like, I mean, just knowing about different things that she did during World War II, and that she was specifically, like, they knew that she was trouble. The Nazis knew that she was a problem, and just the effort that she made to support the Allied forces is phenomenal. Why she's not talked about more in terms of like secondary and post-secondary education, especially for those who are not specifically like majoring in history, I'm not sure, but her story is fascinating. I wasn't a huge fan of the writing in this one. I thought the information was good, but in terms of the actual structuring of the book, wasn't a huge fan of it. But like I said, ended up giving it 3 stars. After that, I ended up reading Clown in a Cornfield. Not Corn in a Cornfield. I mean, corn is in a corn. This was campy. I am dipping my toes into horror this year. I've read more horror this year than I've read any other year. Literally, I've read more horror this year than what I have ever anticipated picking up, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna pick up Clown in a Cornfield. I put myself on hold for it. It came in, I was like, we're gonna do it. Campy 1980s 1990s teen fiction horror, like, it encapsulates all of that. Reminded me so much of like Fear Street. Like, it just gave me those old school teen horror vibes that I was not anticipating. So we are following a main character who moves to a new town to start over with her dad, and this town is weird. There is a clown that is and I'm surprised that I did this book, because I'm not afraid of clowns, but evil clowns, like, are, you know, it's a thing. Like, I watched it entirely too young. I should not have seen it at the age in which I saw it, but hey, I did. I saw it. Yeah. So I have a thing with evil clowns, but I was like, okay, is this gonna be, because I knew nothing about it, right? As long as this book has been out, I knew nothing about it. I was like, oh, you know, is this gonna be like paranormal, like, you know, evil clown? Like, no. This was not what I was expecting. The generational thing, blown away. Okay, I was not expecting it. Gruesome, a little cheesy in some aspects, some great social commentary in there if you know where to pick it up, but overall a vibe. I did enjoy it. I was shocked. I did enjoy it. Ended up giving it 4 stars, and I'm going to continue with the series. I hear people say that books 2 and 3 are not as good, but I am here for the campy 80s 90s teen vibes, and I think I want a little bit more of that. It actually made me want to pick up Fear Street. Like, literally made me want to pick up Fear Street. And the last YA book that I have, and this will be the final book of this wrap up, is The Glittering Edge by Alyssa Valeri. I'm hoping I'm saying her last name right. I read this one for my Read It or Unhaul It, which literally was up 48 hours before this video. So I'm not going to talk about this much here, because yeah, literally that video just went up. But if you like the old school young adult paranormal books that used to come out back in the day, like we're talking 2013, 2014, 2015, you will enjoy this book. You'll enjoy it. I had a good time with it. I know in that vlog I was saying like I was waffling between a 3.5 and a 4. I'm gonna go with a 4. Definitely gonna go with a 4, because I think it definitely, the more I sat on it, I was like, it definitely deserves 4 stars, and I am excited for book 2. All right, y'all, that is it. Those are all the books that I read in the month of July. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content from me, click the subscribe button and hit the bell for notifications. Let me know in the comments down below what you ended up reading in July. What was your favorite book? What was your least favorite book? If you are looking to follow me on social media or support the channel, all the links will be down in the description box below. And I will be back with another video soon. Bye!